Companies were touted as the engine that would drive the new economy and the stock market to ever greater heights. These innovative enterprises, which promised to deliver everything from pet supplies to Proust over the internet, were not only going to make a lot of investors rich, they were going to change the very fabric of our lives. No more newspapers, no more television, no more trips to the mall. The world would be available at your computer terminal. At least that was Wall Street's vision of the future just 7 or 8 months ago. Now, it looks more like an hallucination. E-businesses are collapsing on a daily basis, and disappearing with them into the virtual netherworld are billions of dollars in capital, tens of thousands of jobs, and hundreds of former tycoons. And the carnage is just beginning.
Thank you. Cheers.
These were the champagne days of the internet startups, when any company with just about any idea could go public and make its investors gazillionaires, at least on paper.
9 for 15,000.
When Wall Street drooled over anything with the words .com in it. But make no mistake, the party is over. From Silicon Valley in California to Silicon Alley in New York City, tens of thousands of people with stock options that used to be worth a fortune but are now worthless are clearing out their cubicles and heading for fashionable pink slip parties to hand out their business cards and commiserate.
Getting laid off twice within 3 months is not an experience I want to have again. They'll tell you one thing, well, everything will be fine. We're just going through transitions. The next week, we're downsizing. The next week, we're closing.
They are roadkill on the information superhighway. More than 140 .coms have already logged off for the last time.
3, 2, 1. We put this baby to bed. Shopping is now turned off.
A lot more will be pulling the plug in the next 6 months after they count their receipts from the holiday season. Internet stocks are off more than 70%, and former high flyers that once fetched $30, $40, $50 a share can now be had for a few bucks. But if you're looking for real .com opportunities, they're no longer with venture capitalists. They're with vulture capitalists like Jim Nesfield.
What we do is basically look for companies that are distressed or bankrupt that other people won't go near, and we try and buy the assets of the company as cheaply as possible. We're considered vultures.
So you're picking over the bones of the .com business?
Yeah, pretty much. And there's lots of them. And there'll be a lot more. Yeah, there'll be a lot more.
From his basement office in Nags Head, North Carolina, Nesfield looks for companies that have laid off workers or filed for bankruptcy, like APBnews.com, a company predicated on the notion that there were millions and millions of people willing to log onto the internet to get the latest in crime reporting.
They went bankrupt. So a company that costs, what, $42 million to build, basically, you could pick up for $600,000.
Nesfield says the assets of a failed .com range from unsold merchandise to office furniture to customer lists with detailed data on consumers, all of which can be resold for a profit.
All I have to do is figure out if the assets are worth anything and buy them for less than they're worth.
You want to talk to desperate people.
I'm not the lender of last resort. I am the last resort.
I presume you don't call them up and say, "Hi, I'm a vulture capitalist."
I do.
You do?
Yeah, vultures are like hope. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're not the hope that you'd have, on an IPO. But that means there's something there. If you think you have nothing and I'm calling you, you might have something.
Then again, you might not. Michael Wolff is a journalist who started out publishing books about the internet. He was persuaded by investors to take his media company online. At one point, his bankers told him the company was worth $100 million, on paper, that is. Was there ever a time that you were actually making money?
No, never. As a matter of fact, your investors and backers said, don't make money. Making money is the wrong strategy.
Really?
The game now is to take market share, what's called mind share, to build brand. So to worry about making money was something that that was a small-time thing to do.
You wanted to spend money.
You wanted to spend money. The more money you lost, the more you were worth.
It sounds ridiculous, but it was the standard business model for most .coms. The theory was the first thing you needed to do was to make a big splash, attract eyeballs, even if you weren't quite sure yet what it was you were selling.
I will bring you nice things, flowers, fruit, that sort of thing.
The dot-coms burned through billions of dollars in advertising trying to attract attention. Everything from putting stickers in toilet bowls to firing gerbils out of a cannon during the Super Bowl.
People looked at this as though it was the real estate business, as though you were literally buying land, buying, in one of the metaphors of the business, waterfront property. It didn't make any difference that the property was not making money. When the time came, the money could only but come pouring in.
What was wrong with that paradigm?
There was no property. There was no property. There was no water.
There are still some true believers, but most of them are hanging on by their fingernails. Take the exhibitors at the National Conference of E-tailers. Most of them are not just losing money, they're burning through their investors' capital like it was kindling. E-tailers like Jim McCann.
Hey, Junie.
For 20 years, he ran a profitable, privately held company called 1-800-Flowers. Customers could pick up their telephone and order flowers anywhere around the world. Then he decided to put the company online. He took it public last year and changed the name to 1-800-Flowers.com, and the company lost nearly $70 million. Like most people we met at the dot-com conference, McCann claims prosperity is just around the corner.
We now have 10 million customers, so we built a wonderful opportunity that we were already able to take advantage of.
But you lost, according to my figures, $68 million in change last year.
Absolutely.
That's $1.3 million a week.
That's right.
$200,000 a day.
Uh-huh. You can't start General Motors and not have any capital. So our $67 million that you aptly point out for last year was our capital investment in those assets that we needed to be in business.
One of the most talked about dot-coms, at least in internet circles, wasn't represented here. In fact, you can't even say its name in polite company or over the public airwaves. But it posts a daily death watch on other dot-coms that are rumored to be going under. There is this website that I'm sure you all are familiar
Could you spell it for us?
Begins with an F and ends with .com.
Uh-huh.
Do you pay attention to that?
I've not visited it. I know we're not on it, so I don't feel any reason to be macabre and visit it.
How do you know you're not on it if you haven't visited?
There are people in my office who've checked it recently.
Everyone seems to agree that the internet itself is here to stay. Problem is, hardly anyone has figured out how to make money on it. It's not proven to be a great advertising medium, and in terms of moving merchandise, it's nothing more than an online vending machine, only not nearly as profitable.
This has already been a fiasco, and I think it will turn out to be an even bigger one.
Robert Schiller is a professor of economics at Yale, but you don't have to be an economics professor to know that things aren't going according to plan. The thing that I find surprising is that just 6 months ago, people were talking about this new economy. Unless you were on the internet, unless you were in high tech, you were finished. I mean, you were a moron.
Well, I know, I heard it too. I was marveling at it. One thing you have to recognize about investing is that stories sell. Price-earnings ratios don't sell. That's boring. We have the story called cyberspace. You get on the internet and you feel like it's like an out-of-body experience, right? And so if you ever wanted a story that would motivate a high market, this is it.
With more than 100 million Americans online, Schiller says the internet was much more visible to the average person than most technological innovations, and the possibilities captured the imagination of the public and the media, helping to delude investors into believing we were entering some sort of new economic era where the old rules simply didn't apply. Stock analysts compared it to the Industrial Revolution and told investors to buy, and they did.
You were seeing these people make this incredible amount of money, not just the CEOs, but virtually anybody who was connected to these companies in any way was getting rich. And they weren't spending a career getting rich either. They were getting rich in, 90 days.
How did it happen?
The money convinces people. I mean, if you're a Wall Street guy, and if you said, no, I don't believe in the dot-com business, I don't believe in the new economy, essentially you would be fired.
Because too many people were making too much money.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with money when you're in the money business.
In Economics 101, it's called a bubble. When everyone wants to buy the same thing, the price keeps going up and up until it becomes ridiculously overvalued. Like the stock of LastMinute.com, a company that helps people make last-minute travel arrangements.
It was valued at one point in the market at about $1 billion. But all it was is a travel agency. And their total sales for the last quarter before their IPO was only, I think, $650,000. You know, that's like a 7-Eleven store. That's like a gas station. And the market valued that at $1 billion. It's just the craziness of the internet.
For a lot of people, the dot-com bubble has already burst. Take Candace Carpenter, the former chief executive of iVillage.com, whose stock holdings dropped from $100 million to $890,000. Or Josh Harris of Pseudo.com, who just a few months ago proclaimed himself an entertainment titan.
The new boy is in town. The new boy is taking over as the king of media.
Harris and his multi-channeled streaming video entertainment website were going to make history by making television obsolete.
Our business is to take you guys out. I'm in a race to take CBS out of business. That's my focus. That's what my bankers are telling me to do. The race is on.
Actually, the race is already over. Pseudo filed for bankruptcy, and it's Harris that's history.
If I wanted to start a new business today, I would get a bunch of psychologists together and start a little counseling practice for people who used to think that they were rich. Because it's psychologically traumatizing to see 90% of your net worth get wiped out in a month.
Jerry Colonna is a venture capitalist whose company, Flatiron Partners, got into the dot-com business very early and made a killing. While he concedes that a lot of money was thrown at a lot of bad ideas, he believes in the internet and thinks a lot of good companies will survive and flourish.
4 years ago, when I said the word Amazon to you, you thought of a jungle in the river in Brazil, right? Today, it's branded and it means something. The question is not whether or not we're going to be buying online. The question is from whom will we be buying online?
But the consensus is that 90% of the dot-coms that aren't connected to an established, profitable company will go under. The pessimists think even the big names in cyberspace are vulnerable, like Amazon, which lost money last year despite $1 billion in sales, and Yahoo, which relies heavily on advertising from other dot-coms that may not be around much longer.
I mean, there are people who say, look, only 1 out of 12 companies succeed in American business anyway. What's so unusual about this?
These businesses have had a lot more money thrown at them. This is not small business. You know, this is not, someone starting a delicatessen. Some of these companies have had $50 to $100 million thrown at them, and they're going under.
How bad is it going to get, you think?
Really bad. There's not a scooper big enough to pick it up off the floor.